United States of America. So please put your hands together and give a warm-hearted Magnolia welcome to my friend, Tom Cotton.
Beth Ann, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. I know that this was a busy week for you, and it wasn't easy to get here, so I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us tonight. And as Beth Ann said, thank you all for coming out. Ted and where's Nate? Thank you for opening your home, your beautiful home to us tonight. And Nate, thanks for kind of driving everything, putting us together. And Jamie, thanks for bottom 5 burgers. Those are great.
Casey Whitehead helps, folks. The ones that are good, I did.
Well, I had 2 of them, so I'm not giving you too much grief. I really do appreciate you being here tonight, and appreciate all that you've done to help build the Republican Party here in Magnolia and Columbia County more broadly. I like Beth Ann's prediction that I'm going to win and be the next congressman, and I'm working hard every day to make sure that's going to happen. But the prediction I'm sure about is that I am going to win Columbia County.
Yes,
Because if you look at just what's happened here over the last couple of years, the victory that Beth Ann had here 2 years ago in her race against Mike Ross, or the turnout in the primary, I think it was about triple what it was 2 years ago in the primary. It's a testament to all the hard work that so many of you have put in to build the party and get people who are conservative to realize that they should also be Republican. And that's happening all around the 4th District and all around Arkansas. The Republican primary turnout in the 4th District was up almost 60%. And the Democratic Party primary turnout was down almost 55%. So it goes to show you where all the energy and excitement and activity is going into the fall election. I'm confident not only that we're going to win in my race and above me in Mitt Romney's race nationwide, but down the ballot, our state Senate candidates and our state House candidates are for the first time in modern history going to elect a Republican majority to our state legislature. And I'm going to do my part all around the district to make that happen. I've gotten to this race for a lot of the reasons that I joined the Army so many years ago. I thought on 9/11 that we were attacked for who we are. We're the home of freedom, and we're freedom's defenders. And if you listen to what our enemies say, they say that's why they attacked us. And today, we need to stand up and fight for freedom at home, because and we have a lot of little kids running around. Maybe they're there they are. Trying to get out. A lot of little kids running around, and we've all had for all of our lives, the younger ones of us or the older ones of us, a heritage here in America of opportunity and prosperity and freedom. And we all worry that the kids in that room aren't going to have the same kind of opportunity and prosperity and freedom that we've had if we don't make real changes today to what's happening in our country because of failed government policies in Washington and the failed leadership of Barack Obama. Now, I know that a lot of you, like I, was probably disappointed a couple of weeks ago when the Supreme Court upheld Obamacare almost entirely. But there's an old saying that don't ask me how good or bad the day was until the night has come. And the night hasn't come yet, because Obamacare survived on June 28th, and it's going to fall on November 6th when we elect a Republican majority all around the country in the United States Senate and Mitt Romney to the White House. And it's not just that law that has to fall, because we all know how bad that law is, how bad it is for patients and for doctors and for our healthcare system, but it's really a symbol for all that's wrong with Barack Obama and his administration. If you consider the taxes it imposes on things like medical devices, some of you may use medical devices, some of you may have medical devices inside of you right now. It's imposed a 2.3% excise tax on the revenues of medical device companies, not the profits, the revenues. There's a new almost 1% surcharge for Medicare for upper income earners. There's a 3.8% tax on investment income for capital gains and dividends. And I'm sure some of you here who have small businesses pay your taxes as an individual. You don't pay the corporate tax code. And those kind of tax changes that Obamacare has implemented already and the president wants to seek next year are very destructive for economic growth and for job creation all around the country and right here in South Arkansas. But there's the spending side of this as well. Obamacare was supposed to reduce the deficit. It's not hard to make a law appear like it's going to reduce the deficit when it's got 6 years of benefits versus 10 years of revenue. But when you clear out all the smoke and mirrors, we now know, especially after the Supreme Court's decision, trimmed out some of the Medicaid provisions, that it's going to actually add over $1 trillion to the deficit in the first 10 years. That's on top of the trillions of dollars Barack Obama's added in just 4 years in office. The Republicans didn't always cover themselves in glory when it comes to spending discipline under George Bush, but it's gotten much worse because of Barack Obama. We always knew that we had a challenge ahead of us as the baby boomer generation began to retire. That put strain on our retirement and our health programs. Well, Barack Obama's overspending has just accelerated that to the point where we've got to make tough choices today to get our budget back to balance. And then there's finally the regulatory aspect of Obamacare. Things like the Independent Payment Advisory Board that's going to dictate to doctors and patients what they can and can't do in terms of procedures or other kind of diagnoses. Or the fact that if you own a restaurant, the federal government is going to dictate to you what you can put on your signs. Not just calorie counts, as some of us are getting used to, the fonts and the size of the fonts on your restaurant menus and your restaurant signs. Not good for you if you're in the restaurant business. Pretty good if you're in the sign business. But the government shouldn't be making those kind of choices. Just like it shouldn't be trying to regulate hydraulic fracturing. You know, the Department of Interior has postponed regulations on hydraulic fracturing on public lands. But Ken Salazar, the Secretary of Interior, has said state regulation is not good enough. And if Barack Obama is reelected, we can be certain that it won't be good enough for Ken Salazar or Barack Obama in the future. Just like the Department of Labor tried to shut down a $2 billion plant after the $2 billion had already been invested in South Carolina because Boeing wasn't playing along with the president's union friends in Washington State. If it can happen there because it's a Southern conservative right-to-work state, it can happen here in Arkansas and all throughout the South. But those are just a few challenges that we face. There's a lot more in terms of keeping America safe abroad, upholding our values, and securing our freedoms for the next generation. And it is a fight that I'm going to try to win once we get to Washington, but I need your help to get there in the first place. I need you to stand with me for the next 4 months, and I'll stand for you for the next 2 years. And I'm very grateful for your being here tonight and for your support. I'm grateful for your hospitality over the last 10 months. I know that probably many of you, most of you, all of you supported Beth Ann in the primary, but I respect that. I respect your friendship and your loyalty to someone who is your hometown girl. And it means a lot to me that you would be here tonight to support me. It means a lot to me, Beth Ann, that you would be here to introduce me. And I'm very happy now to have all of our oars in the water rowing in the same direction. So thank you again. I'm happy to take a few very easy questions if anyone has any, or I'm happy to go back to eating more of the hamburgers too.
I have a question. It's pretty broad brush, but you're from, I kind of look at the district, it's shaped like the state of Idaho. Kind of. I don't know how I put that together, but it is.
Yeah.
But when you being from Dardanelle and that part of the country and what you guys are doing up there, in southern Arkansas, Miller County, Lafayette County, Columbia County, Union County, Ouachita, Hempstead,
Yeah.
Ashley, in that area, what do you see? I mean, we have oil and gas down here, we have bromine and Albemarle, we have timber. I mean, what do you kind of, when you look, if you become a representative and you kind of look at our district and you're saying, okay, this part of the country's doing this part of the country doing this, do you see anything for southern Arkansas that you feel like is, hey, here a part of the country's got this, and this going, and I feel like, from a national standpoint or a statewide standpoint, maybe we could utilize this part of the country to draw in jobs for this or develop that resource down there. Are there any ideas in your head for southern Arkansas?
Yeah, well, first I'll say, Beth Ann can probably appreciate this as well. Driving around the district and talking with businessmen and community leaders and so forth, I think there's a lot more in common in the district than what we have to distinguish us. You mentioned the oil and gas, which is obviously a big part of the economy here in South Arkansas. It's a big part of the economy in Central Arkansas as well, the traditional gas wells they have there. More broadly, the energy sector, you've got lignite here, they've got traditional coal in the River Valley. Timber is obviously very important all around the district. There's different challenges. Some west of here and north of here, you've got challenge of logging on public land and so forth. Here you don't have as many public lands, but you still have failed government policies that have caused a collapse in the timber and the forestry products market. So there is a lot that unites the district and that will be good for the entire district. One of the most important things I think we can do is stop the overregulating of our industries here in South Arkansas. I mentioned the I mentioned the Department of Interior and the rule on hydraulic fracturing on public land, which also can be very destructive for production on private land. The EPA, sometimes it seems like it has a bullseye drawn straight on the 4th District when you look at the rules that's proposed for oil and gas, or for timber, or for agriculture, and so forth. So I think, there's a lot to do on the taxing and spending side, but overregulation is something that we could probably put the stop to fastest, especially if we elect Mitt Romney, because we'll stop the rules that are in the pipeline, and we can also start defunding the enforcement of some of those rules that have already gone into effect. When it comes to things like taxes, obviously the president for years has been demagoguing the oil and gas industry, trying to eliminate things like the IBC write-off or percentage depletion, which just any other kind of business tax deduction or tax credit. So we have to protect those against the president that's not.
Slow them down.
Yeah. So and the timber industry, Deltic's got a mill down here. They've got one in Yell County as well. And timber is important everywhere. And until we get housing policy straightened out, so we don't have to get back to 2 million starts where we were 6 years ago, but we got to get above 400, 500,000 starts where we are now to make sure that the timber industry is robust again and people are going back to work.
Right.
Questions? Anyone? All right. Yes, sir.
My name's Chris. I'm new in the area. I'm not actually a permanent resident here. I'm down as a contract engineer in Albemarle. But what's
Where are
your
you
view
from?
of the Tea Party?
Where are you from?
Upper Michigan.
Okay.
There's no jobs up here. So,
Move on down and register to vote. You've got until late October.
I just got my absentee ballot. I wasn't here.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. So, but I want you to know your view on the Tea Party, in particular, the emphasis they had on spending.
Yeah.
Because what originally fired that off was not just the bailouts, not just excessive spending,
Mhm.
but the fact that everybody tries to play with these increases, decreasing the increase and calling it a cut,
Yeah.
instead of absolutely cutting from the bottom line.
Yeah.
Not just dropping the curve,
Sure.
but dropping the entire thing down.
Yeah.
When Ron Paul had his policies, he wanted to take $1 trillion right off the federal
Yeah.
budget
Yeah.
first and balance the budget in 3 years.
Mhm.
And Ryan wants to do the team. And I don't even have a problem with that, but it seems to me that the acceleration, not just in spending, Bush to, if you go back to, say we got all the Republicans,
Mhm.
in the Senate, President, or the House, how are we gonna not just prevent what happened with Bush, but actually turn back what's going to cost the government?
Yeah. Well, to the first part of your question about the Tea Party, I'm sympathetic to their views, like most Arkansans are. I've seen some polling that shows 88% of Arkansans have either attended a Tea Party rally or said they're sympathetic to the views of the Tea Party, and I think that's really because the Tea Party and mainstream traditional conservatives are more or less aligned on the issues that matter to both taxes and spending and so forth. And I think the kind of division that the mainstream media at the national level tries to put between the Republican Party and the Tea Party, it certainly doesn't exist here in the 4th District. I don't think more broadly in Arkansas. I'm not sure it exists around the country.
Well, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I helped start the Tea Party in one town in western Michigan.
Mhm.
I've been a long-time Republican voter. I'm very, very conservative, and I'm socially conservative.
Yeah.
So, we had overwhelming amounts of veterans,
Mhm.
and they're just normal, hardworking, conservative people from that.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it's a good thing that there's a group of people who, for the first time, really in most of their life, have gotten involved in politics, and they did it, out of the purest of motives. Because in 2009, they saw their country going in a direction that they didn't recognize, and they wanted to try to help turn it around. And that's what we need. And it's also a group that are very dedicated to our constitutional foundations. And you don't always hear that in politics, and it's very refreshing to hear it.
So give me a specific answer on the spending thing, though.
So
Instead of raising the debt limit again, how do you think the Republican Congress can actually cut spending completely?
I agree that we need to cut spending, not just reduce the rate of growth, or let it grow more slowly than it was once projected. We have to have actual budgeting that's based on needs, not based on traditional spending. This is another reason why the stimulus in 2009 was so destructive. Is now Democrats in Congress try to set that as the baseline, like where we can't cut below it. You mentioned the Ryan budget. There's also the Jordan budget, some alternatives that would move spending to where it was, say, in 2007 and 2008, which wasn't exactly
Still push it
lean
up.
times. but it would undo a lot of the damage that President Obama's spending has done, and it would get us on a path to balance in the 5 to 15 year period. I would obviously favor 5 over 15, but also we just have to cut spending, and we have to have real offsets. Another trick that members of Congress use is they may have a $100 billion spending bill that's going to be spent in 3 years, and they offset it with $100 billion of cuts spread out over 15 years. Well, unsurprisingly, oftentimes $100 billion of cuts in those out years don't actually happen. So there has to be real, I think, dollar for dollar spending cuts anytime spending is reduced on the one hand, if we have to increase the debt ceiling again, and those are things that we haven't seen in this Congress. And that's in part because the Democrats still control the Senate and the White House. It'd be a lot easier if we control the Senate, which I hope we will, and it'd be actually ready to be accomplished if we can control the White House. But it's something that I'm going to be on the lookout for, is overspending from either party.
What's your plan of attack, I guess, on commercials against your opponent?
Well, I'll have commercials, but I won't necessarily be against my opponent.
So you're going to do more of just a broad-based conservative messaging?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long way off. Voters right now just went through a primary and a runoff, and most of them are focused on kids' vacation and so forth. So we haven't laid out those kind of ideas. Right now we're working hard to raise the money necessary to run the fall campaign, whether it's TV, radio, mail, or giving our volunteers the tools they need to turn out the vote. I think I'm going to try to, like I did in the primary, tell my story and tell the voters what I want to accomplish. But that'll probably be sometime in August or September before that starts. So we'll jump off the bridge when we come to it. But it's an expensive district. Is the bottom line. If you take Tim Griffin's district, most of you know Tim. He's got Little Rock, and he buys TV or ads in the Little Rock media market. You take Steve Womack from Northwest Arkansas, he buys TV ads in Fayetteville and Fort Smith. And then you add those two together, and that's what I have to do, plus Shreveport as well. So it just takes a lot of money to communicate with the voters, and we're committed to doing that. Any other easy questions? Oh, where was that?
What is your ideas about, what are your ideas about tax reform, or like, kind of in general?
Yeah.
And then I've got another follow-up.
Okay. I think tax reform is a chance to actually have one big bipartisan accomplishment in the next Congress. You saw that in 1986. Voters started talking seriously about tax reform in '84. It had been 30 years since the tax code had been reformed. And then it took a long time because the code is so complicated. But I'm hopeful that it is something that we could accomplish in the next Congress, and something I'd like to be a part of. And I think there's kind of general consensus on the need to broaden the tax base by eliminating a lot of the special interest credits and deductions and exemptions, so we can lower tax rates for everyone who don't have the lobbyists and the influence to get all those special tax perks, and also reduce the number of rates so individuals and businesses can save and invest and spend their money as they see fit. And I think that needs to happen on both the individual and the corporate codes. The corporate code's obviously always going to be a little bit more complicated because businesses have operating expenses that they have to take into account to get from revenues to income. But both of those codes need to be reformed and simplified. Any follow-up?
Have you heard of the fair tax, and if so, what's your position on it?
I have. The national sales tax. I think if you were going to start over from scratch, it'd be something to consider. With an income tax, with the 16th Amendment on the books, I'd be worried that adding a sales tax at the national level would just be an invitation for another tax, with the income tax to be quickly resurrected like Lazarus.
Yeah, right. Well, the whole thing of fair tax is to repeal the 16th Amendment. Would you
Yeah.
be for the repeal of the 16th Amendment?
I don't think it's practical. It's not going to happen. So I think what we should be trying to do is take the political victories we can get in front of us. Oftentimes people ask me about my theory of compromise, and one example I use is tax rates. I'd like to get tax rates as low as possible so we can have as little distorting effect on the economy as possible. That's why I would never support increasing marginal tax rates. But even if tax rates didn't go as low as I wanted to, I would support that because it's moving in the right direction. It's not in violation of that principle.